Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. When you think about demonic entities in dark fantasy, you're probably picturing, roaring monsters, fire and brimstone, brute physical force. But what if a demon's absolute greatest weapon was actually his overwhelming politeness? Today, we're diving deep into the archetype of Vassago. We're going to look at how this incredibly quiet, refined figure weaponizes this simple truth to absolutely devastate protagonists. It is completely chilling, and it's a total game changer for your world building.
You are looking for what was lost, but lost is a merciful word. Most things are hidden by someone who survived the hiding. Just picture that for a second. Imagine your character standing in some forgotten, forbidden archive. You're holding a candle up to a keyhole, and the dust is moving like it's breathing. And from the other side, a voice speaks out to you. It's perfectly courteous, like a prince receiving royal guests. That right there is a completely different kind of terrifying. Vassago doesn't threaten you. He simply records with a dead beg to keep silent, because he knows that finding a deliberately hidden thing, well, it's almost never a blessing.
So where does this all come from? To really grasp his literary power, we have to look back at his foundation in traditional folklore. He is catalogued as the third spirit of the Ars Goetia. And right from the start, he completely breaks the mold. Unlike your typical chaotic, raging monsters, Vassago is described as incredibly lucid, perfectly calm, and honestly, almost helpful.
And that foundation brilliantly sets up his highly specialized domain. See, the original lore of the Ars Goetia opens with its really deliberate, fascinating rhythm. The very first spirit, King Bael, is all about secrecy and hiding power. Then, the second spirit, Duke Agares, forces the return of things that have fled, so unsettling movement. And then we hit spirit number 3, Vassago, the prince. He is the undisputed master of disclosure. Together they form this perfect opening triad of secrecy, movement, and finally revelation. Basically, if Agares drags back what ran away, Vassago exposes what vanished without a trace.
Now he commands 26 legions, which to put into perspective is a totally different scale than the massive world-ending armies ruled by the demonic kings. Because he's a prince, his military power completely subverts our expectations. If you're dropping him into your world building, do not picture ranks of heavily armored shock troops. Scratch that. Instead, imagine a much tighter, highly specialized network. We're talking spies, meticulous scribes, unseen messengers, and literal shades of memory whose sole purpose is to recover shattered fragments of lost history. His power isn't about sheer numbers or brute force. His power is entirely about information.
Which brings us to his core creative persona, the Archivist Prince, a refined aristocratic demon serving as the ultimate keeper of records. As a prince, he embodies diplomacy, quiet observation, and the sense of unfinished ascent. He stands adjacent to absolute power, possessing the incredibly unsettling calm of someone who already knows exactly how your story ends before you've even figured out the beginning. So, if you're writing him, remember the golden rule here is restraint. Vassago doesn't need to shout to command the room. His mere presence shifts the entire gravity of the situation. When we map out his creative profile, a really stark, fascinating contrast emerges. You have this quiet, intensely observant, and highly formal presence, right? But it is totally at odds with his visual motifs. If you're designing a scene, maybe writing a chapter or sketching a comic panel, surround this guy with dusty archives, pooling black ink, pale flickering candles, mysteriously sealed letters, and broken clocks. He speaks as if every single event in the history of the universe has already been neatly cataloged and filed away. It creates this heavy atmosphere of sacred silence mixed with absolute, elegant danger.
And this leads us right to the absolute core of why Vassago works so well. It is the moral horror of truth. The danger here isn't a cheap jump scare, and it's certainly not brute physical force. No, the real horror is that psychological dread, that sickening realization that getting exactly what you asked for might completely, irreversibly ruin your life. Let's actually compare two vastly different approaches to dark fantasy antagonists. A roaring, cruel monster uses violence, right? And that obvious, in-your-face evil makes them incredibly easy for a hero to morally reject. You just know, hey, I have to fight this thing. But a helpful demon like Vassago? He uses politeness.
His good-natured willingness to hand over devastating answers makes him practically impossible to resist. It's like dealing with the most helpful librarian in the world who just happens to know the exact book that will completely shatter your sanity. Honestly, his total lack of hatred feels so much worse than actual malice.
Traditionally, his office is to discover the hidden or lost and to declare things past and to come. But in the context of a story, this isn't just cheap parlor tricks or simple fortune-telling. We're talking about the terrible burden of knowing. The past, it returns as buried crimes, deep generational shame, or some forgotten blood-soaked pact. The future becomes this terrifying trap where a prophecy actually forces a character to act out of fear, literally creating the exact doom they were desperately trying to avoid. Hidden things turn out to be intentionally erased names and deliberately concealed records. And lost things? Well, lost things are vanished evidence, where the physical object itself is way less terrifying than the horrifying reason it was hidden in the first place.
So you see, this missing information isn't just a convenient plot device. It is directly wired into the moral structure of your story. Vassago doesn't just clear up the plot by handing the detective a missing clue. He makes the plot endlessly heavier. He exposes the things that were intentionally buried by people who were just trying to survive. When he reveals a truth, he completely pulls the rug out from under entire lives, families, and societies that were comfortably built right on top of those painful secrets.
Okay, so how do we actually put all this into practice? Let's walk through 3 distinct, incredibly dark plot hooks that you can drop straight into your own campaigns or stories to really devastate your protagonists.
Here we go. Hook number 1. The missing archive. A monastery burns to the ground, but a single catalog survives with all these blank, scrubbed-out spaces. The protagonist learns these aren't just missing texts. They are names deliberately hidden from history. And Vassago? He calmly offers to restore every single one. Hook number 2. The object no one owns. A thief steals a sacred relic, but miraculously, every new owner forgets the theft the very next morning. Vassago knows exactly where it is, but he warns that finding it will instantly restore the memory of every horrific crime ever linked to it. And finally, hook number 3. The lost name of Bael. To defeat the very first Demon King, your hero desperately needs his true name. Vassago can absolutely reveal it, but he politely warns them that some names were hidden because even demons feared what they meant.
All of this boils down to one genuinely terrifying realization. His true danger is that he may be right. Think about it. If your heroes are facing a standard villain who lies and deceives, that villain can eventually be defeated by proof. The heroes find the evidence, expose the lie, and they win the day. But a completely truthful demon, that leaves your characters with absolutely no escape. You cannot disprove a terrible reality. When the absolute truth is the weapon being used against you, there are literally no shields.
So, as you go off to craft your own narratives, I want to leave you with this final thought. Vassago stands right at the knife's edge between comforting ignorance and devastating revelation. When that deeply hidden thing is finally found by the Archivist Prince, who is ultimately destroyed by the finding? And is the truth, no matter how pure or accurate, really worth the cost of knowing it? Keep that in the back of your mind the next time your characters decide to go digging around in the dark.